We are going to begin in 3, 2, 1. Ooh, it's been a hot minute since we've done one of these. Let's loosen up and stretch out with a subject that's relatively easy to talk about. Comics. Hello everyone, I'm your favorite former twin Adam and welcome back to the channel. On January 27th, Bizarre Comics made a post on Twitter about the hypothetical relaunch of DC Comics. Here's a fun scenario to play with. Suppose you're put in charge of DC Comics, and in order to attract new readers, you have to reduce the line to only 10 monthly titles. All of them start at issue 1, and you can use any characters you like. What does your DC lineup look like? At the time, I was knee-deep in work. I didn't have the availability to sit there and write a multi-part follow-up tweet. Of course, that means my brain wasn't running a subroutine in the background formulating an answer to this question. So while most of you have been sitting there thinking about the representation of grief, or trying to spin theories with little to no hard evidence as to how Mephisto could really be the big villain in WandaVision, I have been sitting here trying to figure out how to change a company that has been creatively and financially viable for the last 90 years. I've been clamoring for a revamp of the direct comic book market system for a very long time now. Local comic book shops are great. They should be a communal neighborhood hangout, and they should be the backbone of comic book culture. Comic companies, DC and Marvel specifically, allowing themselves to be distributed by publishing standards from almost 40 years ago is not good for business. The direct market doesn't make comics tremendously available to the average consumer. Comics should be available everywhere, but they're not. Among the many things 2020 showed us, it's how precarious DC Comics currently sits inside the great communications beast that is AT&T. With mass layoffs and corporate restructuring, it looked like for a hot minute that the publishing arm of DC Comics might be done for. Not the best sign for the engine that drives all these lucrative IPs. Accessibility to the physical medium that comics should be is at an all-time low. Besides your local comic book shop, there should be racks of comics available at every 7-Eleven, Wawa, Quick Check across the country. A Redbox-like vending machine that distributes comics either physically or digitally is a goldmine that no one seemed to have tapped into yet. Heck, stick them in a GameStop, for crying out loud. They've got enough junk clogging their shelves as it is. Make comics available to everyone. But most importantly, make them cheap. What drew me in and made me kick around Bizarre Comics' tweet was how a 10-title rollout would make it extremely accessible to get comics into the hands of every she, he, and they out there. So before I go into my picks, 3 things happen to every book in this lineup. Number 1, every book is a 100-page giant. Number 2, every book in this lineup costs $4.99. Number 3, every book is printed on uncoated paper. Save the premium, glossy, high-quality stock for trades. A single issue of an average comic is, 22 pages without the ads, and already runs you $5 a pop. My Disney Plus subscription is $6.99. What's the better value? A 22-page comic that takes you 15 minutes to read, or a monthly subscription streaming service that has 60 plus years of Marvel TV and film content available at your fingertips? $5 for a 100-page comic. Less than $50 for an entire company's monthly output. My list starts with the one hero that absolutely needs to be published. Now, I've never really been able to find any hard evidence to this, so I don't necessarily know if this is just lore or legitimately legal. But as far as I know, DC Comics has to publish a book every single month called Wonder Woman, or else the rights revert back to the estate of William Moulton Marston. Now, this works out for me because Wonder Woman is my absolute favorite. So my number one title is Wonder Woman. With 2 hit movies in the last 4 years, a third on the way, a big giant push inside the DC Superhero Girls line. I mean, has Diana Prince ever been hotter than she is right now? I can't recall a time. So we do Wonder Woman first. The second title is Superman. You cannot publish a DC comic book monthly lineup without Superman. It would be like if Marvel did not publish a Spider-Man book. You can't do this without your flagship character. Clark was the first. Clark was the mold. You do a Superman book. My number 3 book is Batman. Because it's Batman. And Batman will always be... Now, all 3 of these are individually titled superhero books. Everyone gets a monthly ongoing story inside each issue. That would be like the equivalent of like your standard 22-page floppy. The rest of the book is dedicated to shorter main hero tales and other features dedicated to that character's supporting lineup. This is where boosting the page count comes into play. Take, for instance, a Superman character that I love, John Henry Irons, Steel. Have a monthly, regular, ongoing feature with him as the lead inside this book with a different creative team than the main Superman story. And you can do this with anybody. Lois Lane or Lex Luthor, Jimmy Olsen, Crypto for crying out loud. And you can delve into Superman's past here. I mean, give me something silly like a 50s sci-fi pre-crisis Superman story where he needs to come up with a random power on the spot, like super math solving ideas so that he can figure out an algorithm or something along those lines. Have fun with this. Put someone like Evan Dorkin on a Sunday newspaper comic book strip, featuring someone like, I don't know, Mr. Mixed-Pitslick. And Batman's history is just as rich to pull content from after the regular, kind of grim and gritty or, darker Batman stories. Jump into something along the lines of like an Adam West story or a Dick Sprang style like story. And DC has, 4 Robins, 3 Batgirls to pull stories for? And then there's the entirety of the Rogues Gallery. Oh, you know what I would love to see? Like a Riddler 1-page comic that's just like him, like introducing like brain teasers and puzzles to the audience. And the answers to like that month's batch of puzzles are followed up and answered in the next month's issue. With Wonder Woman, you could delve into the history of Themyscira and the Amazons. You could do Hippolyta, World War II stories from when she was Wonder Woman. There's Greek history, the gods that you can pull from, different mythological creatures. And right now would be the perfect time to introduce somebody, say like Nubia, and giving her a spotlight. You could also do the same with someone like Artemis. It's in these bumped up page counts where you can find out what does and what doesn't connect with an audience. It's the absolute perfect place for experimentation. And that's it for regular monthly hero titles. This is where everything else changes. There are no more individual hero comics in my version of the DC Relaunch. Everything else from here on out is an anthology title. We start with Action Comics. And I want this version of Action Comics to live up to its name. And here's where you start to see the rest of the library of DC's heroes start to get filtered in. This book is headlined by The Flash. It's headlined by Aquaman, Vixen, Captain Atom, Hawkman. All of them will be found within inside the pages of this specific title. It's serialized storytelling told by a variety of different creative teams, complemented by shorter form content, spotlighting a different hero every time. Everything in this book should be fast-paced and filled with excitement. I don't necessarily see it having to be tied to Superman at all. What should be the spotlight are very big, end-of-the-world, good versus evil superhero stories. From there, we move on to the other big title, Detective Comics. Fill this book up with all of the other DC sleuths and pulp hero characters. Green Arrow, The Question, John Jones, The Elongated Man. Because these are mysteries, the stories told inside this book can be as dark or as light depending on the individual hero. And unlike Action Comics, I could totally see the majority of this book being set inside Gotham City. You could revive Gotham Central in here. Like, could you imagine just seeing a serialized version telling a Harvey Bullock hard-boiled detective story? Or someone like Slam Bradley, just like working on cold cases. Make Detective Comics live up to its name in the same way that Action Comics should live up to its name. The third anthology is the Justice League, but not Justice League. Justice League Unlimited. I want this title to live up to the pitch-perfect storytelling, the excitement that came in the 3rd to 5th seasons of the Cartoon Network show. Your big narrative push is the big DC7, telling those big giant tales in the vein of like the Grant Morrison era. Then you can jump into something a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. Maybe like a Blue Beetle Booster Gold led B-Team. And we're not just doing Justice League inside of here. We have to hit the World War II era heroes, and this would be the perfect place to have a regular ongoing feature of the Justice Society of America. And if you're even following the template of Justice League Unlimited, why not even set a bunch of these stories inside the DC animated universe? And I'd love to see a couple things like take all the water-based heroes and create a team where they have to all go up against all the fire-based villains of the DC universe. And if we have the Justice Society inside of this book, this would be the perfect time every July to kind of honor that old tradition of the Justice League books and have that yearly crossover between the two teams. Next, Strange Adventures. This is the space and sci-fi book. Green Lantern, the Green Lantern Corps, the Legion of Superheroes, Adam Strange. All of this is mixed together. You can do your time travel stories, you can do your space stories, you can do your big cosmic stories all in this book. I would love to see a real Alex Raymond style take on the New Gods in here. 7 pages worth of stories where Orion is like a Flash Gordon character and Darkseid is a Ming the Merciless type. With a smaller page count, you could really do some fun things with the arts. Have a mix of artists doing things stylized like Mobius or Art Adams or Bernie Wrightson, where you're just packing every single page with little things here and there. Just art spread out to the corner of every single page. The 5th anthology in this relaunch is Sensational Comics. Now, I want this to be the sister book, the companion book to Action Comics, but with a real emphasis on keeping stories light. This should be where the younger heroes of the DC Universe play. Shazam and the Marvel family, the Teen Titans, the Jamie Reyes Blue Beetle, the Super Sons. I'm hesitant to use the term kid-friendly because all comics should be kid-friendly. I want Sensational Comics to have that sense of fun and whimsy inside these pages. Keep the grim and gritty stuff out of this one. Big adventures, but maybe the stakes aren't end of the world high. Next book, House of Secrets. Magic, horror, Vertigo characters. This book is purely personal. I actually think this would probably sell the poorest in this relaunch, but that doesn't mean that I feel like you should ignore the magic side of DC. I miss Vertigo comics deeply. I think Folding Vertigo was one of the single, if not the single, worst creative choice for the comics industry on a whole. All those non-superhero stories that you would want to tell, so many of them were told over there. And also, Folding DC, you're really killing a lot of non-superhero comic-based IP that I'm sure Warner Brothers would love to tap into to tell TV and movies later on down the line. And you really can't ignore characters like Swamp Thing, or John Constantine, or the Spectre, or Zatanna. The magic side of DC Comics is as important as its earthbound and cosmic superheroes. Is this the Justice League Dark book? Probably, but like I said, I would want to keep this book as free from traditional superheroes as you could. And if you want to tap into the biggest part of Vertigo, this is the perfect book to do short content form on the Endless Family, or Lucifer Morningstar. Jump back into maybe Why the Last Man, or American Vampire. My final title in my DC Comic Books relaunch is The Brave and the Bold. Batman team-ups. Look, you have to have 2 Batman books. There's really no way around it. But if you're going to do another Batman book, pair Batman up with another hero. Get as many other comic book heroes inside the DC universe in this book. Get your world's finest fix in there. Pair Batman with Superman every month. I could even see something like Batman and the Outsiders, maybe a rotating group of like those heroes kind of coming in and out of this book as like a backup feature. I could even see the Suicide Squad fitting in here because it's a rotating cast of characters that you could pull in and out. Play around with the visual medium. Have a Jim Aparo Batman team up with a Neil Adams style Batman, or a Joe Quesada stylized Batman, or a Kelly Jones style Batman. Comics is a visual medium. Take advantage of that. So that's my take. 10 books that give the full variety of the DC superhero lineup. The versatility of comics medium lends itself to anthology so darn well. Everything in these books has something for somebody. And all of these titles, I mean, there's a wealth for experimentation and storytelling here. If you wanted to do the big yearly mega crossover event, 10 books at 100 pages apiece, 1,000 pages dedicated to just telling one story and knock it out over the course of a month, I think things could get pretty big and epic if that's how you wanted to tackle a crossover story. A huge thank you to @BizarreComics for tossing this idea out there onto the internet. I mean, when I wasn't knee-deep in work, I was constantly thinking, how would you go about relaunching this whole thing? Where would you put individual heroes? What would be the best way to pack as much into 10 books for a monthly lineup? This was a lot of fun. Everyone please go follow Bizarre Comics on Twitter. They are one of the best comic book based accounts on the Bird app. Go follow them today. So that's all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please head on down below and give this video a thumbs up. Give the channel a subscribe and hit the bell for notifications for future videos. I've been your favorite former twink. Thanks for watching. My list starts with the one hero that absolutely... Yes? No, I'm reading the list here. Me. I'm reading the list. Clearly, it's that. DC Comics has to publish a book called Wonder Woman, or else the rights revert back to the estate of Will. Do you mind? Do you want to be in the video? I don't think you want to be in the video. Why don't you just sit there and be cute? You just want to be cute? I'm not going to pick you up. Just sit there and be cute. It's serialized storytelling told by a variety of different creative teams. Yes? I'm in the middle of a video. Here, I'll catch you.